What's going on YouTube? This is Boxingwave. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All right, so I did a recap on Jaime Munguia against John Ryder. We know that Munguia stopped Ryder in the 9th round over the weekend. And I did a recap, just reviewing the fight and talking about the division, overall possible fights, mainly for Canelo Alvarez. Because let's be real, everybody's waiting on Canelo right now. It really depends on Canelo. This is what happens when you have a big superstar in a division. Everybody's waiting to see if they could get that super fight first. And then after that, looking at all the other options. And to be honest, if you really think about it, it's no different from 168, how it was prior to Canelo moving up there and going after the titles. Before Canelo fought Callum Smith, everybody was waiting around. There were no unifications. There were none. Callum Smith and Billy Joe Saunders were both champs. David Benavidez and Caleb Plant were both champs. All right. You had guys, two of those guys were over at Matchroom. The other two were over with the PBC. They didn't unify. These guys were having other fights that weren't really relevant outside of Callum Smith, who was part of the World Boxing Super Series. Outside of that, there wasn't really any great fights happening at 168. It was actually considered one of the weaker divisions. So what's happening then is kind of what's happening now, because you're not getting many fights between the very best of the divisions. And there's a lot of good fights that can be made at 168 without including Canelo Alvarez. At the end of the day, Canelo has many places he can pull from. He can fight someone at 175. He can even fight someone from 147. I mean, just think of the names that's come up in the past, 6 months or so. Terrence Crawford. Jamel Charlo already fought him. Jamal Charlo. Jaime Munguia. Bivol in a rematch. It's all over the place. And a lot of them don't include the two guys that should be next in line, which is David Benavidez, because he's the WBC interim champion, and David Morrell, who is the WBA regular champion. So Canelo has been doing whatever he wants to do. Outside of John Ryder, who I believe was a mandatory, he's fought Triple G in the trilogy. He's fought Jamel Charlo. He went up to 175 to fight Dimitri Bivol. This is after he became undisputed. Right? Now, Bivol wasn't a bad fight. It wasn't a bad fight. Triple G, trilogy, it's just too late. No one wanted it at that time. I know they did a million pay-per-view buys. I understand that. But the hardcore boxing fans weren't really necessarily asking for the fight. But no one complained neither. I know I didn't. I really didn't want to see it at that time, but I wasn't complaining neither. And then you had Ryder, who was like, okay, I don't want to see this fight, but it's not a bad fight. And then you had Jamel Charlo, which I wasn't a fan of ever. There was no point in Jamel Charlo's career where I thought he could beat Canelo Alvarez, especially moving up 2 divisions. But look at where we are now. All right, we had Jamel Charlo, and that, in my opinion, that was a tune-up for Canelo. It was a tune-up. So was John Ryder. It was a tune-up. Those are two very voluntary type fights. Let's be honest. Like, John Ryder's a good fighter, but there's no fight in his career that made me feel like he was the elite. He's a good fighter. I don't even think he won against Jacobs, but, you know, the fight was close enough. But here we are. David Benavidez, resumes, not even just mandatories or rankings. If we're talking resumes, he has earned his shot at Canelo more than anyone else at 168. And this division right now is no different from 175. It's no different from 135. You got a bunch of guys that are ducking each other because they're trying to get the Canelo fight, and they don't want to risk losing a fight before fighting Canelo. As far as Canelo, I don't know what Canelo is doing. I don't know if he's waiting from a call from Saudi Arabia, maybe, in order to take one of these dangerous fights. I don't know what he's waiting for. He shouldn't be fighting Terrence Crawford. He shouldn't be fighting Jamal Charlo. He shouldn't be fighting any of those guys. He should not be pulling up another fighter from anywhere. I know Terrence Crawford would be a big fight because Terrence Crawford has a lot of momentum right now. But isn't Terrence Crawford caught up in a rematch clause with Errol Spence? What's going on with that? I don't know. But regardless, Canelo Alvarez should not be fighting Terrence Crawford. And for the people that like to attack Benavidez and keep saying Benavidez should fight David Morrell, because that's the thing that's happening now. David Benavidez should be fighting David Morrell. Well, it is a good fight, and I think the fight should happen. But Benavidez has earned his spot against Canelo Alvarez. There's nothing else that any recent fighter that Canelo's fought is doing more than Benavidez at 168. None of them. You guys are doing the same exact thing that Spence fans was doing to Crawford. You're just throwing names at Benavidez instead of, you'll say Benavidez is overrated, Canelo would stop him. You'll say anything but let Canelo fight him and prove it. It's like you're throwing things at Benavidez in a way to justify Canelo ducking him. He needs to do more. It's no different from Spence fans and Crawford fans who will come up here first and get a belt. He went up there and got a belt. And then once he got the belt, nobody wanted to fight him. No, you got to do more. You got to fight Danny. You didn't fight Kell Brook, or you didn't fight Sean Porter. You didn't fight Keith Thurman yet. You had to fight more people first before you earn a spot with Spence. This guy's already a 2-division champion and a former undisputed champion. And now he's a 3-division champion, and you guys are still making excuses. What more does Benavidez have to do? I mean, Canelo's already with the PBC. I said that most likely Canelo's going to fight him last in this 3-fight contract. If it is only 3 fights. But in reality, he should be fighting him now. You just fought Jamel Charlo and John Ryder. Why would you even fight Jaime Munguia? Why would you even fight him? He's over with Golden Boy. Do you really want to deal with Oscar De La Hoya? You don't even like Oscar. Why even give him the opportunity? What is the problem with David Benavidez getting his shot? What is the problem? Why he beat Andre Plant this past year? What is the problem? And for Canelo fans, what is your problem? Why are you throwing so many obstacles in a way of that fight from happening? I mean, Canelo's going to do what he wants to do anyway. But the fans making excuses as if David has not earned his spot is crazy. No, he does not have to fight David Morrell first in order to get a Canelo fight. No, he doesn't. Would I love to see it? Yes. And if Canelo doesn't fight him, and this is my logic, and this goes for everybody. My logic is if the star doesn't take the fight, you got to do what you got to do. So if Canelo doesn't fight Benavidez, yes, I think Benavidez should be fighting guys like Morrell, Christian Mbili, or Jaime Munguia. You know what I mean? I think he should be fighting the other top fighters. It's no different from 175. We all knew who the top two 175 guys was. Bivol and Beterbiev. It's been that way for a few years now. But in the meantime, if they're not fighting, if they should be fighting each other, but if they're not going to fight each other, the other best guys should be facing each other. It's the same with every division. I've said this about 147. It was Spence and Crawford all this time. In the meantime, Boots should be fighting Virgil Ortiz, Stanionis, Keith Thurman, Ugas, whoever was the top guys at the time. They should all be facing each other. While the two main dudes go at it. Same thing with 135. I mean, I don't even know what's going on with 135 because 135 is just complete bullshit. Like, Tank is literally fighting no one. And I know some of you guys, being that I'm black and you are going to be Canelo Mexican fans, you're going to bring up every other fighter that is black and throw it in the comments like you always do. No, the same thing stands for the black fighters too. You can't even come at me with that angle. Tank should be fighting the winner of Loma and Kambosos or Shakur Stevenson. Since Devin Haney is at 140 now, I'm not even gonna bring it up no more because I don't want anyone to have to drain themselves in order to make that fight. Tank should be fighting Lomachenko. He should have been fought Lomachenko. He should be fighting the winner of Loma and Kambosos or Shakur Stevenson. He's ducking too. So for Canelo Alvarez, I know he's great. I know he's like a 5-division champion. I know he's undisputed. But part of being a champion is defending your titles too. As long as you hold on to those titles, I'm going to bring up David Benavidez because Benavidez has earned his shot more than all of these guys. By far. He's a former champion himself. When he screwed himself out of a title shot with Canelo, when Canelo moved to 168, when he screwed himself out of that, I wasn't one of those people that was saying that Canelo was ducking him. Because Canelo went specifically towards the champ. Now though, it's like, all right, the guy has won his title back a while ago. He's won his position back, right? By being interim champ. What is the WBC doing? Why are they not putting any pressure on Canelo to fight David? What are we waiting for? David is coming off some of his best wins. We can't even say anymore that he hasn't fought anyone. You guys are going in the same road that Errol Spence fan said. He got to fight this person to get the fight. No, he doesn't. He's earned his shot. You guys love moving the goalposts for specific fighters. Canelo should be fighting David Benavidez next. He should be. Now, I know he may fight Jamal Charlo, which is crazy to me, but if he does fight Jamal, then you know what? Benavidez, Morrell, Munguia, all these guys, yes, they have to stay active and do what they got to do. Because their careers should not be based. That's what happened to Demetrius Andrade. Demetrius Andrade kept calling out Canelo, chasing guys like Canelo, and not fighting the other top fighters in between. So Canelo could have just said, you fight nobody. You fought nobody. He didn't. He really didn't. Most of the fights that didn't happen was his fault. Outside of a couple of them, but, you know, like Billy Joe Saunders. But the majority of those guys that he had an opportunity to fight, it was kind of Andre's fault on why it didn't happen. So I get it with him, but I mean, you know, Benavidez is going to have to do what they got to do. You know, and so I don't know what the PBC is doing, and I feel like, you know, it's starting to look like outside of the fights that's going on in Saudi Arabia, it seems like there's a lot of bullshit going on, especially with the PBC, especially with this rollout they got, especially with them. But Canelo is fighting with them right now. And if he is under contract still with the PBC and Amazon, he should be fighting the very best. You make the most money per fight. You are the undisputed champion. Why are people giving Canelo a pass to take easy fights when he is the champ and he is the face? You guys say he's the face of boxing. I agree with you. But he should be fighting the very, very best all the time. Anyone on his level should be fighting the best. And David Benavidez is the best at 168. And even if it doesn't matter who you think wins that fight is irrelevant. Some of you are so scared of your favorite fighter to lose. You'll come on here and say shit, oh, you just want him to lose. Well, if you think Canelo is going to win, why would you care about how I feel? I do think Benavidez will beat him. That's my pick. I think it's a 50-50 fight. I think it's a chance that Canelo might stop him by landing a hook to the body. But it doesn't matter who I think is going to win. The fact is, this fight should be happening. This guy has done more than enough to earn his shot. So if you guys want boxing to be better and you want better fights, you can't just keep targeting the same fighters that are ducking. You have to address everybody that's ducking. Everyone. That's what I said. It's been a travesty that Bivol and Better BF have not fought each other yet. You guys have been the two best guys. What are we waiting for? Luckily, it's happening now, but it took so damn long. We could have been in a situation where Better BF started looking his age. Luckily for us, luckily for him, he's not. So that's my stance. Especially for these high-paid champions. They should be fighting the very, very best all the time. All right? Taking a voluntary. If you're busy and you take a voluntary here and there, I get it. That's cool. You won't hear any complaints from me. But how many are we going to get? I mean, going for Triple G, an old Triple G, to Ryder, to Jamal Charlo is cool with you guys? Are you serious? No, that's not acceptable. That's unacceptable. We know you went through Plant, Saunders, and Callum Smith. It was a good run, but it's been years now. Benavidez, who was a champ, lost it on a scale, recreational drugs or whatever. He's up in place to fight for a title. The WBC should do something about it. And the same with the WBA. You know, they awarded David Morrell regular champ. Whether or not he should be, I don't know. That's up to you guys. But he is the WBA regular champ. So technically, one of those two should be getting a title fight. But the sanctioning bodies is not doing their job, which is usually the case for the WBA and the WBC. Anyway, that's my point. I want to move on from 168, unless there's some news that come out. Again, Canelo taking some of these other fights, they're not bad fights, but it's like, give us a challenge. I want to see a challenge. I've been saying this about Tank for years. I want to see you challenge. There's certain fighters that I've been waiting to see them get a challenge. I've been waiting. And Canelo, Bivol was a good fight, and it was a dangerous fight. He lost. But since that fight, there's no question who was going to win Canelo fights. We know he was going to be Triple G. We know, we all knew that. We all knew he was going to be Ryder. We all knew what he was going to do to Jermell Charlo. Like, let's be real. Benavidez? Nah, everybody's arguing back and forth on who's going to win that shit. That's a different fight. Morrell? Nah, we arguing about we going back and forth about that fight. So I don't want to lose focus, on that. All right. Anyway, yeah, and no more pulling up guys from weight. I know Crawford wants to fight him and stuff, and I love Crawford, and it is an interesting fight and it's an interesting matchup, but it's just too much weight between those two. And I have Crawford. I want Crawford to, unfortunately he has to fight Spence again, but I would love to see Crawford fight Boots. I wanted to see him fight Tim Tszyu. Those are the fights that were realistic for me. All these jumping multi-divisions, no one ever wins those fights. You know what I mean? And then after it's over, it's like you don't only get the credit. Fight David Benavidez.